Okay, live. We are live.
All right, John, whenever you're ready, Chair Dixon.
Yep, I just muted for a second. Anyway, thanks for your patience in this delay. Let's call the meeting to order. 126, apologizing for that delay. I'll just announce the good news, and I think most of you may know this. Cindy, I'm not sure who's on, by the way. Let me see. So I'm on my phone. Cindy and Travis. And then John is there. Okay. And Marcus, I guess, is not. I don't have the agenda in front of me. So, Angie, are you there? Angie, are you there? Can you help me with attendance roll call?
Angie is not here today, but I can say that all board members are present. Marcus Magdaleno is absent by prearrangement. Travis Scott is here, and county staff, Jim Feenan and Adrian Thompson, are available.
Okay, thank you. So sort of off agenda before we jump into it, just an announcement that I was been working with Ted Williams this morning, and John Glidewell helped quite a bit with this email. But there's hundreds of vaccines that were shipped that now that lodging, and this is a lodging meeting, so I'm going to announce it here, that are earmarked for lodging in particular, and equipment's coming from Ukiah to the coast, so that tomorrow all day we're going to have a big lodging vaccination day, and that's what part of this delay was today, was getting this email out. And Travis, I saw, thank you for emailing it to your list as well. So that's very, very good news as we start this lodging meeting. So let me get to where I can see the agenda so I can appropriately step us through this. And while I do that, can somebody help me with what's the first item on the agenda?
Matters from staff, and I would say we have no matters from staff here at the county. We have not received any communications from the public, nor have we received any telecomment or any members of the public wishing to speak or address the board. So you are good to move on to your regular calendar item and start with your continued discussion and direction of your draft annual report.
Okay, thank you. So for everybody, I think that the big open item here was how to address, whether it's one item or two items here, this open topic of how to the board makeup essentially in the future, what we might recommend as something to consider. And the two options were, just as a reminder, right, to change from having three, so there's 5 seats, 3 large operating seats, 1 and 1, so 1 medium, 1 small, so 3, 1 and 1, to potentially 2 large, 2 medium, and 1. And the idea here is to have more representation and qualified board members, to have a bigger, as Callie said, sort of bigger pool, gene pool. The other was to change the definition of who is eligible in the large properties to be not just owners, right, but to be some kind of other definition of a qualified person, so an operations person. And I had thought that maybe we could do some research here in the last 2 weeks, and I have not been able to.
John, you accidentally muted yourself.
Sounds like, John, you went to mute, maybe unintentionally. If you can hear me, you are on mute.
He might have hit something on his phone.
Yeah, sounds like he was in the car there.
Recommendations that we thought we might want to include, we still have an opportunity to do that. So anything, those are what I think is open. Any discussion about that at this point?
Yeah, thanks, John. As far as the draft that was sent out, it looks like we're talking about the recommendations actionable by the county of Mendocino. and there's some draft language in there that reads, change the following section of the bid ordinance to include general manager or similar employee designated as responsible for top-level business operations in the following sections, 5.1, etc. Click here to view the ordinance. So that's the sample verbiage that lives there in that recommendation. And are you feeling that we still need time to massage or research and maybe suggest better verbiage?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sorry that I don't have it in front of me, and I apparently can't get it unless on the website of the county website is maybe where I can try to find our agenda. I don't see it as part of the Zoom request.
It's
A link.
not, because they post the meeting before I can do the, get this draft over to them. So I can send you a copy via email right now. Stand by.
Okay, thanks for that. And I thought what I meant to also was the actual agenda, so I can.
That will be posted on
Reference
your
that as
bid
well.
page on the website.
I didn't see that in the Zoom link.
What I'll do is I'll put the link to the county site in that email that I'm sending right now.
All right, I appreciate the help.
Sure, no problem.
In the meantime, John Glidewell, I think I just received a text, and that's opening as well here.
Okay, so John, you're getting the link to the bid advisory page on the county site, as well as a copy of the report as it stands.
All right.
Oh boy, I don't want that. Oh, mama.
Let's see. It's to you, me, and Vandy.
It is.
She edited the request in the.
All right, I have the draft. And John, the language that you just read, I know it's near the end of these recommendations here.
Should be on page 27.
27. And which number is it? 4?
That's going to be B1.
Okay.
Sorry, Travis.
No problem.
Change your first line. Staff report notices will be available 10 days before the hearing, not are available. No.
Okay, and so is there any discussion? I see that language there, and I think the answer is yes to the question. I think that before as long as we don't get pushed out here too far, where we're not going to be able to finish this in the timeline to get it where it needs to be before meetings happen and approvals need to happen. I don't want to keep kicking this down the road, but this is one way to do this.
Board action.
The other that was suggested as a potential was that we also put in, the two in one idea, so that I don't know if we need both in order to get this bigger gene pool of potential qualified folks on the board. I mean, what is everybody's thoughts about this? Does this cover it? Is this, I want to kind of hear again from everybody. I'd like to, if everybody could sort of chime in on this, and see, just feel your comfort level. If this is the best solution and the most balanced for moving forward, because I think this is an important point. Looking at potential pros and cons to doing it this way versus, 2, 2, and 1. And I know that I was acknowledged that last week we talked about that making a medium as one of the seats as a potential is a little bit more work, not as easy to accomplish as this is, just a change of one definition. And so I'm acknowledging that. But that aside, I think if everybody could weigh in on this, again, I would appreciate it.
thought about it a little bit since our last meeting, and I'm pretty comfortable with the language. I feel like we have several people that are involved with what we've done this last year that are more the general manager role, that are a lot more aware of the ins and outs of what's happening, a lot more hands-on, a lot more involved than perhaps an owner would be. And so I feel like that's a good way to expand the pool for getting those seats filled. It was also something that Callie suggested, and I do like the idea that it's simpler. All we do is just change the definition. It seems pretty straightforward. I would love to know too, John. I know that John Dixon, that you expressed some concern about making sure that the people that would be in those positions were not just designated and not being qualified, not really being a player that could really contribute at the level everybody else is. Are you comfortable with the wording as it is? Do you feel like that kind of alleviates that concern that you had?
Well, what's interesting about this is, and we talked about this before. I think the way I recall from when it was first set up this way, the issue was raised by actually some of the larger properties, meaning Callie and some of those folks were wanting to make sure that it was only owners. And so, like I said, she's offering this as a potential for more candidates. And I think it says a lot about sort of where we are, where the organization is, and sort of where just lodging is in general, and working together, that there's no concern that she has anymore about it. So the point is, it's not my original concern. And for me, it was sort of something that I suppose was negotiating, putting here, not by me. But so I feel protective of it in the way that, at some point this was important to somebody and it wasn't me. And I want to make sure that I'm remembering and we're all recalling when we look at the pros and cons of a change, that what are the potential pitfalls and why was this there in the first place? And, again, I get it that the folks, Callie in particular, who were calling for this aren't anymore. They're calling to change it. I just want to be thorough. Honestly, that's all. It's not really my concern. It's that I want to make sure that we are all understanding what the pitfalls can be. So from my memory, what the issue was before is that sort of a lower level person, like a desk person, whatever, was being given the blessing by an owner to be on, but they weren't necessarily qualified. And that is covered, to answer your question, I think in here, it says general manager or somebody in charge of the operations of the day-to-day business. So I mean, in that way, I feel like it does cover it. So, but I hope I'm answering your question. It's not really been my concern, but I want to be, I feel like a guardian of the original document a little bit. And so if we're calling to make these changes, I want to frankly just be very thoughtful about it.
No, I think that's excellent. And I also, like the idea that if Callie herself suggested this, which kind of if she and some of the lodging owners themselves had originally expressed that concern, and now are comfortable with us expanding to more of a general manager role. If she's comfortable with that herself, and I think it does speak a lot to how things have progressed. So I'm fine with it as is, but I really, as I said 2 weeks ago, I really put a lot of value in historical perspective as to why things are there to begin with. So I think it's good that you're thinking that way, John.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? I think we should also
have some thoughts.
Sure, John. And just as you're formulating your thoughts, I think the idea of doing 2 large, 2 medium, and 1 accomplishes something else besides just more of a gene pool of it, but it's also potentially more representative of more of the businesses. If you think about 1 seat, for all of the medium lodging, when you look at a bell curve, as far as number of businesses, there's way more medium sized than there are large. And the reason it's weighted the way it is because of the dollars. and that's the cutoff for the third, and the third. And so I think we should consider that when as we're talking about this. John?
Great. And Travis, I think you unmuted first if you wanted to weigh in.
No, at this point I don't. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. I saw your little mic turn off there. I wanted to make sure. Yeah, so I'm comfortable with the verbiage. There for a couple of reasons. Cindy touched on them, but it sounds like the MCTC board is already positioned to accept this and run with it, which I think is a comfort. But I also really feel like, this description, general manager or designated as responsible for top level business operations, this is a headline that will basically attract applicants, but it won't guarantee that they get a seat on the board. And I really am glad that there is a second step of, after that applicant is being reviewed, there is some consideration on qualification. So it's not just whether they check the boxes. It's, does this board and the board responsible, or the body responsible for reviewing the applicant, feel that they will contribute? And so there's sort of a double hurdle to reach there. So that's the first comment I have. But the second comment is, if in the interest of widening the applicant pool, obviously this change of verbiage will help, but I agree, John, that maybe having it as 311 isn't the best representation of who should serve, to represent the lodging community. But I also wonder if you switch it to 221, if that sort of limits, then if you have, we already have trouble attracting enough board members, but is there a way to consider changing it to a 221 structure that says something like, no more than 3 large, no more than 2 medium, no more than 1 small. So if any given year we have a large applicant pool, we find that the best 5 people are, they actually are, 3 of the best ones are from large, 1 is from medium, 1 is from small. Then you're not throwing out the 3rd large applicant. You're just saying, okay, that still makes up the build, but it doesn't require a 221 structure, but it can. So giving that lenience to the middle-sized lodging to say 1 or 2, not more than 2, and then the same for large lodging, no more than 3. So I don't know. I'm just thinking, I'm okay with it for a first step to say the verbiage as it's been drafted, because it will accomplish that original goal and it's going to be adopted easily by MCTC. But to really consider, being more representative of the county as a whole, maybe there's a way to be a little more creative there.
So, and I think that's what I heard at some point, the idea of like and or, meaning, so maybe there's like, to follow on to what you're saying, like maybe 2 large, and then the 3rd large is also is like an and or, depending on, I don't know if you can really do it like that. If there's 2 fixed, because then they come up at different times. I don't know if that matters. Maybe they all are. Maybe whenever a large comes up in the rotation as available, if there's not already another, to what you're saying, that they're not more than 2 medium and not more than 3 large, that every time one comes up, that a medium can be considered, a medium property can be considered. And I guess the other sort of part of this is if we recommend to say it as both. So even a medium-sized property could then put forward somebody who's an operations person. I don't think it's as common, but it does happen where there's a medium-sized property that has a general manager, for example, right? So, and it would stand to reason that it would be the same for that level as well. Now, does that mean for a small property that should be the way it is? Probably, to be fair, but pretty sure there's not an operations person who's not an owner in a small property. But that's, I think, another question this poses, is if we do it across all versus just large or not. It kind of raises that question. But I like the idea, John, that you have of sort of not more than 3 and large and not more than 2, so that it can accomplish the same goal and maybe is more representative of the number of properties who are medium.
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Please.
Oh, go ahead.
What if if you're interested in doing this, I think the easiest way to change that would be to take the large at large position and change that to a large or medium at large position. Then you don't have to say, if anyone comes up, it's like, okay, if this at large comes up, it can be medium or large at large.
Yeah. Maybe less complicated, you're thinking?
Less complicated, and now it already stands that it's anybody inland or coastal. So if you just added that it could be a large or medium at large position, you're covering that base. And then it comes up every 3 years, and if it's medium, it's medium. If it's large, it's large.
And then let me ask a question to the group. If we were to do that, it definitely opens up the potential for more possibilities, more applicants. Would we then need to change the definition and go that route of manager? Should we, do you guys think we should, if we go down that road, should we do both? Should we make it across the board for large and medium and small that a general manager or operations person is eligible for the property? Would we need to do both?
I believe that it needs to the section needs to read general manager or similar employee, like the verbiage that we have now. Otherwise, I think we're missing a bunch of talent.
Yeah.
It's also what was actually originally requested of us when they kind of looked at the pool of possibilities. That was the suggestion that was made. So I think I would agree. Doing both would be good. It also might mean that you don't have to revisit it again next year if just doing one doesn't cover it all.
You know what else I like about it that just kind of hit me is that, the previous folks who worked on this, who may or may not still be in lodging or not, or may not even be paying attention or care, let's say, but with them in mind, if there's a change on one side, maybe it's not a bad thing that there's changes on both sides. And I don't like to say it as sides, but there was definitely a table and there was a group of people on having discussions over a table, and who had different perspectives, and that finally came together, and which is what we're the board makeup and the structure as it is right now is the outcome of that, is what I'm trying to say. But also then, if there's a change to one of the pieces of that agreement, to change sort of both or one on each side again, it maybe what am I trying to say? There's maybe a concession on both sides that's sort of inherently built in, and it also accomplishes the goal. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. And it kind of, for me, again, not remembering all the sort of details of some of the items that might have been discussed and sort of concessions for people before. This feels like if we were able to do both of these and open it up, loosen it up both ways, then it does away with any kind of concern, frankly, that I have about that I'm approving or sort of putting forth anything that would make anybody unhappy from the past. Does that make sense? 'Cause I feel, again, I'm a guardian of that. But if we're relaxing sort of on both sides in a way to meet the same goal, I have actually a higher comfort level with proposing it. Does that make sense? The way I'm talking a lot of words, but I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. That's clear, John. I think it does make sense.
Yeah, I like it. I like Travis's suggestion. I like the verbiage that's drafted. I think combined they are stronger. And is it doable for this recommendation to include both? I mean, is that a reasonable recommendation? And I guess I'm asking maybe Travis.
Are you asking if it's doable to put them both in the same recommendation?
Yeah, or how would we? Okay, maybe I'm getting too far ahead. But if we do it where we're recommending that both of those changes happen, would it apply to the same item, recommendation item, or would we want to write separate recommendations?
I think you could make it in one recommendation.
And
Okay.
Travis, what? I'm sorry, John. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, that was it. It was, yeah, that was it. Thanks.
And Travis, how difficult is it going to be to make these changes? You mentioned before that we'd have to go back to some original documents to do this. Is that how much work is that? And is it something that has to be approved, through certain channels, or is it fairly straightforward?
Yeah, it's not straightforward. But I don't know what it would take on the county end. Adrian might need to speak to that. But we on the MCTC side would need to, approve and adopt this change, and then change our bylaws, which would is a couple month long process in our world, but it's not something that can't be done.
And would that be in time for when we would need it, for when different vacancies happen?
Well, I mean, it may or may not be done in time this year, pending the county's level of work and what their responsibilities are. A lot of it depends on their workload.
Yeah, so we'd probably need to work with county council and produce a red line version of the bylaws with the changes after MCTC's adoption and approval, and how you guys wanted to do that. And then from there, it would be securing a board date and seeing when we could get on the board and if the board had any comments based on those changes. So I'd have to talk to county council and see their opinion on it. But I mean, at a minimum, 3 months. Hopefully we'd be done by November for the new recruitments.
Is it possible to change the definition, and in case it wasn't finished by November for the new recruitments? Is it possible to change the definition and have that go forward so that we know at least that's in place by November, and then keep working on the other one if it takes longer?
My opinion, and Adrian, again, feel free to jump in after me. My opinion is that changing the definition to include general manager would be a lot quicker process. It'll still have to go through red line and be put before the board of supervisors, but I think that would give them less cause to pull it and have major discussion on it, rather than changing the seats.
And that we also don't change the bylaws by just changing the definition, correct?
Correct. Our bylaws do not have to change, the MCTC bylaws.
And then that should be faster through the board because I'd requested on consent, and I doubt that anyone would pull a definition change. But I do have to have county council approval to do any of these items. So again, it's waiting on, we only have one county council that works with planning and building, and Matt's timeline to give me any sort of approval, because I can't take anything to the board without his approval first.
Is
And
it fair?
just so,
Go ahead, Travis.
I was just going to say that these were all, when Callie brought this forward, these were all considerations that, we had discussed at the MCTC level as well. So.
And were they generally accepted? I mean, they were brought forth, but what was the reason for not bringing them forward? Was it the ease of getting it done, that the change of definition was most interesting because of the ease of it? Or, I mean, how were the others accepted? The idea of this 2, 2, and 1, is that something that you think that the current board would be for?
I don't know, honestly.
Okay.
The board discussed the route that Callie proposed that we have in the verbiage now, because it got us where we wanted, with the least amount of work on the side of the county and on the side of the organization.
It sounds like it's all possible, though, what I'm hearing, that it's a few more hoops to jump through, and it might take a little bit of time. But what that does, though, is just raise the question that this board has to answer: is that a barrier to making the recommendation the way we've just discussed, and making it into one? Including this 2, 2, and 1 idea, or the not more than 3, not more than 2 idea. I'm comfortable. For me, if I speak up first about it, and we should hear from everybody, I'd like to still see that happen, because for those reasons that I stated earlier, I won't repeat. It also sounds like it is possible, even though not as easy. It still sounds like it's possible, and it's really up to us. It's just a recommendation from us. We're not certainly making any decisions. We're making the recommendation. And if we see that this is the best way we'd like to see it go forward, it's unfortunately, makes work for some folks, not us, and we can acknowledge that. But if this is how we'd like it to see it be, then that's our job, to state the recommendation, how we agree, or how we'd like to see it. So let's, can you guys talk to that point? Sort of what is your position given all that you know?
My thoughts are we recommend both changes and justify them as having the makeup be a better representation of our lodging community, and for the definition to be changed so that it attracts a wider and more talented pool, and will improve operations of this board for future terms. So I think all this discussion on this topic is really about seeing what's best for the future of this board and for our lodging community and the county. And so I'm all for it.
Thanks. Before you speak, Cindy, I have a question that I think I want to clarify in my own head, and maybe for this, how it's written. If we change the definition to general manager, is it automatically then across the board for not just large, but also would apply for medium and small? I'm asking, I guess, anybody who knows.
Yeah. Yes, that's the idea, is that it changes the definition for all categories.
Okay, all right. And then Cindy, did you have any other further thoughts?
I think I would agree that long-term, creating more options that, like as Jonathan Guywell stated, that brings more talent into the pool is a good recommendation. I guess and maybe you've already answered this, Adrian, but could you just clarify for me that if we do move forward with both items that we're discussing, does that, if changing the bylaws, the process that we're going to have to go through for the second item with the changing of the number for large, medium, small, if that takes longer, is that also going to hold up the process of just changing the definition? So like if it takes longer and it doesn't happen by November, would we changing the definition could happen sooner than that, so that that's not going to hold up the process of creating more seats to be available. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. So you can make your recommendation as one. They can be combined. That's not a problem. The county will approach them separately, as I believe Travis will propose them separately through his board. It's hard to say which one will go faster. You know, a change in definitions I can put on consent, but again, I have to work with county council, and nothing that I can do can go to the board before they approve it. So it's all based on my workload plus his workload and when we can get it on a board agenda if they allow us to add items. Consent is easier, but if they make us take a bylaw change to a regular hearing, right now I'm scheduling into May, and that's with work that's completed. Work that we haven't even started will be probably August, September at this point. But again, I don't know how they will approach that item after I talk to county council.
Okay, thank you, Adrienne.
Sure.
That helps. Yeah, I think I'd be okay with moving it forward. As we've discussed, moving both of them forward as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I mean, Marcus is not here, unfortunately, to weigh in on this in this meeting. We've heard from him before, and I suppose we'll have on final approval of this next meeting. I guess we're going to do a meeting in 2 weeks with final language. Am I right about that? So I'm looking forward to this to make sure that he has an opportunity to comment officially.
Yes, you're scheduled every 2 weeks through April.
And if we still have a discussion about this particular topic next time, are we still going to hit our final deadlines if we work backwards from those?
That depends on changes Travis may have to make. I need everything completely done by, let me think here, by April 16th.
Okay. All right. So we have at least next week. All right. Got it. Okay. So I'm hearing consensus then of combining both recommendations in one. And I guess that just needs to be wordsmithed, and we could look at it next time. Or do you guys want to try to do that now?
So I've preliminarily typed it up as you guys have been discussing, and I'd be happy to read that to you and take suggestions or changes or anything you want.
Okay, go ahead.
Recommendation 1, change the following section of the bid ordinance to include general manager or similar employee designated as responsible for top-level business operations in the following sections XYZ. It is further recommended that MCTC and the County of Mendocino change the at-large lodging board seat to medium or large at-large. This change should be made to the ordinance, bylaw, and bylaws of the Bid Advisory Board and MCTC.
I like it.
Good smithing, Travis. Good smithing.
Good smithing. Okay, got it. All right, let's put that one to bed. Let's let that be the draft for next time. And are there any other sections of the document that need discussion, Travis?
I did add in John Glidewell's recommendation, and I wanted to make sure that I captured that accurately. And his was actionable by MCTC, and that is item 4.
Do you want me to read that, John?
Shall I read that you mean out loud for the purpose of the meeting, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to read that recommendation from the draft report so we can listen to it and discuss if necessary?
Sure. Yes. Go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, this is, as Travis said, under Section A, recommendations actionable by MCTC. Number 4, MCTC should work with stakeholders and possibly Coraggio Group to select the most appropriate competitive set or sets of data as a means of evaluating its market positioning and performance. MCTC can then adjust marketing strategies relative to its competitive set in order to establish benchmarking metrics and capture greater shares of its primary visitor segments. And the only, I think the only word change, Travis, is on the first sentence, most appropriate competitive set or sets. I don't think it refers to of data. It would be of competitors, right? So the competitive set just as a makeup of a list of competitors. I don't know if the word or the words of data should be in there. Maybe it confuses it a little bit.
Okay.
And the rest is, I think, is good on my end, and then would be happy to hear any discussion from the group.
I've read it and I heard what you read there, and so yeah, it looks good to me. It's a good. I think it's clear.
Great. And any comments from you as well, Travis? Anything else that you wanted to ask about that item, or feel like it's pretty solid?
No, I think it's just fine, and yep, I'm good with it.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks good. Looks real good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And any others to discuss within this current draft?
Yeah, so there was a recommendation made, I believe it was last year. Let me just confirm. I'm trying to find it. Okay, it is item 3 on page 25. It was a recommendation made last year as actionable by the County of Mendocino. And the recommendation last year was County Planning and Building Services staff will work with the clerk of the board to schedule quarterly reviews by the Board of Supervisors of the recommendations actionable by the County of Mendocino that are listed in the report for official adoption and provide progress updates to the bid advisory board. And I've talked with the county, and the suggested verbiage back for re-recommending is Planning and Building Services staff, and this is going to be back on page 27, item 4, highlighted in yellow. Planning and Building Services staff would provide the Board of Supervisors with quarterly updates and share that information with the bid advisory board. A quarterly report on the consent calendar or in conjunction with a PBS activity report could be brought forward by PBS regardless of how full the board's agenda may be. The bid advisory board understands that actual time on the board's regular agenda is precious, and routine verbal quarterly progress updates would likely be bumped for more urgent matters. Adrian, did I capture that, how it works for you?
Thanks, Travis. I think that's pretty good. It's one of those, we've been told that only urgent matters can go regular calendar, so we can easily submit a consent item for their review. Just be prepared to not receive any comments back from a board member, because they most likely will just, if you've seen a board meeting, they make a motion, they approve it, they don't discuss it, but they have those items in for information.
And this group had not talked about re-recommending that this next year, but in preparation for that coming up, I wanted to talk to the county staff and, you know, be prepared for this conversation.
Mhm.
And so, Travis, are you just looking to see if this group wants to, you know, leave that in the report as a re-recommendation, or if we want to pull it?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I think we should pull it, and I think we're seeing progress now on the report, especially with this new system being put in place to capture data, and so I think pull it.
I agree.
Yep, I think that's fine to pull it.
Gone.
Yay, one less board item.
Does that ever
You-
happen? We should all.
You
get a-
guys, yeah, you guys just made really good friends with county staff today. So those
What else can we
were,
delete?
yeah, right. Those are all of the recommendations that we had discussed. I did make a few minor changes in the rest of the report. The main being I've finished including all of the graphics and comparisons in the body of the report. The last one that needed to be included was the Destination Organization Performance Reporting graphic that comes from Destination Management International. And I have added that on page 12 and some verbiage to explain that.
Good looking report, Travis. Thanks for all your hard work on this again.
Mhm.
Yeah, that looks good too. Thank you.
Yep, Travis, I love the layout. Really easy to read, very pleasant. And when I was going through it before, I found very few errors. You are a gifted writer.
Okay, anything else, Travis?
Nope, that is it. Other than the recommendations, Visit Mendocino County's portion of this report is complete and it is now in your hands.
That sounds good. It sounds like I'm just gonna forward then to next time when Marcus is here to look at that one recommendation we had some discussion about today. And I think the final thing on the agenda then is approval of the last minutes, if I am reading that right.
Correct.
So we can just do it by, I guess, consensus. And all in favor of accepting the minutes from last meeting, say aye.
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 Okay. And no opposed. Very good. So I think we've come to the end of the meeting. I could move to adjourn. It's 2:13. Unless there's anything else. I think there was another item on the agenda. If there's anything for the bid, I'm doing this from memory now. From anybody on the board before we adjourn.
I have one last question for Adrian, if you don't mind.
And were we supposed to do roll call? Did we skip roll call this time?
No, I did it while John was looking for his agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you, Adrian.
I did it the opposite. I noted the absence by prearrangement.
Perfect, you're on it.
Travis, what's your
Go
question?
for it, Travis.
Adrian, I still need clarification on, probably from the clerk of the board as to John Glidewell's term expiration date for both
Okay.
your website and this report. Could you grab that for me and shoot it over?
Absolutely.
It was on the last board agenda.
Okay.
His extension.
We will pull that off and forward you record. And then just so you know, Travis, we are starting the next MCTC contract, so I'll have a draft for you in the next week or so.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, anything else from, I don't know, I forget the agenda title, but anything else from anybody? Okay, hearing none, then I would move to adjourn. I don't know if we need a second on that at 2:15.
2:15
Thanks,
today.
everybody.
Thank you.
Great. And Adrian, really quickly, since this draft is ready for the next meeting, I'll just forward a copy to you now, and you can post it with the meeting post.
Great. Thanks, Travis.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye.